بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Reach now the section where Imam al-Haramain is going to define taqlid in two ways, and if you pay attention, actually he's saying the same thing. Then we're going to discuss briefly how Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah, and I'll get into this later in greater detail in a separate session, frames taqlid in a way that contradicts the definition of Ahl Sunnah. And unfortunately, his definition is used to destabilize the subtle relationship between scholarship and non-scholarship, between the ulama and the laymen, and to give laymen a sense of power which they don't have the right to have. And what that does is it creates chaos and destabilizes the community. That wasn't his intent, of course, rahimahullah, but that's been how it's been used. Shaykh, he says, rahimahullah, Imam al-Haramain, nafa'ana ta'ala bi'ilmihi fi darini, amin, qala wa taqlidu qabul. Don't say qubul. Qabul is the only, I heard from Dr. Akram, also heard from Dr. Ali from Sudan, I read al-Fiqh ibn Malik. Yani fa'ul is qabul, not fu'ul. Okay? Qabul is the only one that takes fatha with that form, fu'ul. Wa taqlidu qabul, to accept qawli al-qa'ili bila hujjah. This is very similar to what Imam al-Shawkani defines it as in al-qawl al-mufid and also irshad al-fuhul. Irshad al-fuhul basically kind of based on Bahr al-Muhit of al-Khashi, but he sort of changed some things because he was a genius. وَالتَّقْلِيدُ قَابُولُ قَوْلِ الْقَائِدُ بِلَا حُجَّةٍ. يعني التقليد هو قبول القول, to accept a statement, the opinion, bila hujjah, without evidence.
Amen.
So the problem that Shawkani has is that there's no evidence based on this definition, bila hujjah. However, what Imam al-Haramain means is أن يذكرها, that there is a hujjah, but the one being asked didn't mention to the one that's asking. So there's a subtle problem here in how Shawkani defines taqlid, that you just follow someone and that person also doesn't have evidence. That's the assumption. It's a problem. وَالتَّقْلِيدُ قَابُولُ قَوْلِ الْقَائِلِ بِلَا حُجَّةٍ أي أن يذكر هذه الحجة. فعلى هذا قابول قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يسمى تقليدا, because understood that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and here we are able to show what Imam al-Haramain mentions. It's not that you follow someone without any proof. You follow someone, but maybe they didn't mention the proof. That's because maybe we're not qualified to understand it. Maybe it's complex. Maybe it's difficult. Because we're not going to say that following the Prophet ﷺ is taqlid, itba' Sayyidina Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we know he's the Prophet. ومنهم أي من الأصوليين من قال التقليد قبول القول القائل وأنت لا تدري من أين قاله. And this is actually the profound definition used by the scholars of Usul al-Fiqh of Ahl Sunnah. He said, and it is said that taqlid is to accept the statement of somebody and you don't know where they got their evidence, but you know that they're a scholar. You know that there's evidence, you just don't know the evidence. So that's taqlid. We're not allowed to make taqlid of someone if we think they're not qualified or if we think they don't have evidence. That's why Imam Ibn Hajib, in his Mukhtasar, he says, and this is the definition I want you to hold on to: التقليد العمل بالقول غير من غير حجة. Yes, that taqlid madhmoom, right, the taqlid which is not acceptable, is to follow someone's opinion without evidence. Without evidence. But taqlid al-mahmud, and which is a must, which is wajib, which followed upon the one that doesn't have knowledge, is al-amal bil-qawl al-ghayr min ghayri dhikri al-hujjah. Is to follow the statement of someone else, but they didn't mention the proof. Then he says, and this is the important part of Imam Ibn Hajib's definition, وَلَيْسَ الرُّجُوعُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى الإجماع المتيقن والعام إلى المفتي والقاضي إلى العدول تقليدا لقيام الحجة. It's very important what he's saying, and this is going to bring hopefully a lot of unity amongst the Muslims and pull in this sort of unnecessary effort to destabilize the role of ulama. Imam Ibn Hajib says that taqlid is to act upon the statement of somebody without them mentioning proof. Therefore, referring to the Prophet ﷺ for a ruling, or to ijma', which is certain, which is authenticated, or the layman referring to a mufti, or a judge referring to a witness. This is not taqlid in the negative sense. This actually is fard. لِقِيَامِ الْحُجَّةِ. We'll talk about that later on, inshaAllah. So I want you to understand that, because the framing of Imam al-Shawkani, which has been widespread amongst some contemporary Salafis, not all of them. I'm not using the word Salafi as a pejorative. Our brothers were their brothers, walhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Our sisters are sisters. We need to stop working about how we can engage in dysfunctionality. How can we engage in functionality? And this is an academic discussion. So, الرجوع إلى رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أو إلى الإجماع أو العام إلى المفتي أو القاضي إلى العدول ليس تقليدا مذموما، بل هي تقليد مفروضا. أو تقليدا مفروضا. That type of taqlid we have to engage in. The Prophet, somebody goes to Waraq ibn Nawfal, says هذا الناموس الذي أنزله الله تعالى على موسى. This is the angel that was sent to Musa. The Prophet didn't start asking for his evidence and this, and قلده sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we know that there were numerous Sahaba that would ask the Sahaba issues. They would have mentioned the evidence, then they would mention the ruling. فإن قلنا إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يقول بالقياس فيجوز أن يسمى قبول قوله تقليدا. If we now say that the Prophet ﷺ, a new issue, made ijtihad, then we can say what he did, what we follow is taqlid. Okay, but the Prophet ﷺ ما ينطق عن الهوى. Right? The Prophet ﷺ is speaking, giving answers from wahi. But there are 4 opinions about did the Prophet ﷺ make ijtihad or not. Number 1, he did. It's the opinion of Imam al-Amidi, the opinion of Imam Ibn Hajib, Imam Malik. Number 2, he didn't. Number 3, he did, but only in issues related to siyasa, to political issues, sharia. It's mentioned in classical books. And the 4th opinion, at-tawaqquf. This is the opinion of Imam al-Razi and the majority of the muhaqqiqeen. Saying we're not saying anything. We have nothing to say about it. Tawaqquf. What's the evidence for those who say that the Prophet ﷺ made ijtihad? قوله سبحانه وتعالى, Surah Al-Najm, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Also, Surah Al-Anfal, verse 67, مَا كَانَ لِنَبِيِّ, it's not for the Prophet ﷺ, أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُ أَسْرَى حَتَّى يُثْقِنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, to have captives, right, to hold captives until, they gain control, the Prophet and his army gain control, subdue those armies. Because we know Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet asked them what he should do with those captives, Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, you should hold them. Sayyidina Umar said, you should exterminate them. The Prophet ﷺ, he went with the opinion of Abu Bakr. Later on, the verses came that corrected his ijtihad. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, the 43rd verse of the 9th chapter. Afallahu anka lima idhin talahum. Why did you forgive them? Allah has forgiven you that you let them go, like you excused them. Right? So here these are evidences by those who say that the Prophet ﷺ faqad ijtahad. Then they use the verse in Surah Al-Najm. I have it in front of me, verse 3 and 4. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He doesn't speak from his hawa, from his desires. What he speaks is wahi. They say that it's clear, as Imam Ibn Ashur mentions, that this is in reference to the Quran only. So what's understood, if it's coming from Quran, then outside of the Quran, he was given the freedom of ijtihad. Those who say no, 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 لا يمكن أن يجتهد. They say no, this verse is عام. وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى, in everything. Not just in relationship to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also in everything else. This is the difference, but you're going to find a lot of discussion and debate about. Sahih, the strong opinion, is mentioned by Sahib al-Hashiyah. والصحيح جواز الاجتهاد للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ووقوعه منه وهو الذي رجح ابن حاجب وغيره. And the strong opinion is that yes, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam could make ijtihad. There's a lot of evidence for this. Maybe we'll go through in future texts. But this is what was strengthened by the great Imam, the Maliki, the Kurdish scholar, Imam Ibn Hajib al-Maliki, rahimahullah. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakum Allah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.